Hello everybody, this is FIDE Master Dalton Perrine from chessuniversity.com, and we're doing another video in the Tactics Time series of videos here today. In this video series, I'm going to be working on solving different tactics trainer positions here on chess.com. With each position, I'm going to first of all show you the tactic, then I'll give you the chance to pause the video so you can work on solving it yourself, and then I'll be explaining my thought process for the puzzle, and then at the end showing the solution for each of the puzzles. So, without any more further ado, let's go ahead and look at some tactics here. Okay, so in this position here, black has just made the move king to b8. It's white's move at the moment. Go ahead and pause the video and see what you can come up with for white in this position here. Okay, so in this position here, it's white's move right now. As always, we should be starting off by looking at our forcing moves. Let's see here. We have two different checks that are reasonable. We can do rook to b4 check, and we can do rook takes d8 check. Rook takes d8 I don't feel like is going to be good because first of all, we have to notice we're down two pieces. So if we start trading too much stuff, unless we have a good follow-up, we're just going to lose with our material deficit. Rook takes d8, rook takes back, rook takes again, queen takes back, and that doesn't seem very good. Rook to b4 is pretty interesting, though, because, first of all, if rook b4 check, if black blocks with the knight, we obviously take and get checkmate. And if the king moves over, queen b7 is checkmate. However, with rook b4 check, black is definitely going to take with the queen. If we take back on b4 immediately, black's going to go ahead and take on d1, and we're going to be down two rooks, or black's going to have two rooks plus two knights against our queen, which does not seem very good at all. So if we do rook b4 check and the queen takes, we could throw in the move rook takes d8 check before taking the queen back. The rook will take back, we take on b4. Even that, though, I feel like that might be the answer, but we're still down quite a bit of material. Or, not a ton, but it's a rook and two knights versus a queen. I guess we do have maybe an extra pawn or something like that. Maybe an extra... I guess we have an extra 3 pawns, don't we? Okay, maybe the extra 3 pawns make up for the knight that we're down. So I feel like that's the answer, because I don't see anything else that's special here at all. So rook b4 check, queen takes, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, pawn takes queen. Black has a rook and two knights versus our queen and 3 pawns, I think. So that's probably, point-wise, that's probably better for white slightly, but it's definitely better than being down 2 pieces. So that's definitely an improvement for sure. So I feel like that's probably the answer. So let's go ahead and try it out here. Rook to b4 check. Okay, so the queen takes. You have to definitely throw in the move rook takes d8 check. Like I said, if you take the queen back, you lose an entire rook. So throw this in first. Take the queen back. Okay, so it says it's solved. We are attacking the knight on f6. So the king is also pretty open. We could start advancing the queenside pawn. So I can definitely understand how white's better in this position. We were definitely down 2 pieces. Now we're not down material at all, or not very much at least, compared to the position where we're just down 2 pieces. So definitely an improvement in this position compared to the previous one, or the starting off position. Okay, let's go ahead and look on to our next position. Okay, so in this position here, it is black's move right now. Go ahead and pause the video, see what you can come up with, and we will talk about the answer in a moment or so. Okay, so in this position here, it's black's move. White has just made the move, knight takes d4. This one is really just coming down to looking again at our forcing moves, looking for your checks, your captures, and your threats. We have 2 different checks that are reasonable here. Rook c5 check and knight d5 check. I think we can kind of stop looking once we see knight d5 check, because that's forking the king and the rook. So we check on d5, the king moves somewhere. I don't think it really matters. We take on c7, and we're up a piece at that point. At the moment, we're down the exchange, but if we check on d5, then take the rook, we're actually up a piece. So that definitely seems good. Is there anything better? Is there anything better than just winning the rook? I feel like that's probably the answer, but I just want to double check and see if there's anything better. If we check on c5, white has to go to d2. I don't see a follow-up at that point, though. Yeah, I don't see the follow-up there. I'm pretty sure here it's knight d5. Okay, so the king does move, so we know this is on the right track. We're going to take the rook back, and we've simply made a fork on the king and the rook, and we're going to win the rook in that position. Okay, so not too much to talk about with that one. Let's move on to our next position. Okay, so in this position here, it is black's move right now. Go ahead and pause the video. Think about what you would do if you were black in this position, and then we'll talk about the answer in a moment or so. Okay, so black's move in this position here. Again, this one's kind of just like the previous position. It's all about just simply looking at our forcing moves. And we have, again, two reasonable checks. There are some other checks, but they just sacrifice material. I don't think that's necessary. We have knight e3 check and knight f4 check. Knight f4 check hits both the king and the bishop. The bishop is undefended. So that instinctively leads me to thinking that's the right answer. I don't think there's anything better. So we'll just check. Pick up the bishop. We could take the pawn, but the bishop is definitely worth more, so we want to take that, and it does say this is the answer. Okay, so kind of two simpler problems we just looked at. Both of them focusing on knight forks, double attacks, and simply looking for checks and forks in the position. So that's it for this video. Not too much to say on these last two problems, but anyways, hopefully you enjoyed it. I will see you guys around in a future video for chessuniversity.com, and I will talk with everybody again in the future.